everyone, it's TJ, the Hillbilly Audiophile. I just kidding y'all, I always wanted to say that though, but if you've been watching this channel, then you probably already know that TJ, the Stereo-Bargainphile, does have a little bit of hillbilly blood. But anyways, I'm very excited today, you all, to bring you my full video review of Audiolabs' very own Omnia. Basically, we're ready for anything. But before I kick off this full video review today, I want to give a big thank you to American Audio and Video, a division of Jam Industries, especially Joe, Natalia, and Cheryl for sending me the Omnia on a loan lease agreement. Because of those three people, this video review today is possible. So I want to go ahead and jump into, just a couple specs with you all very quickly. I'm not going to dig deep into the specs. If you want to do that, down in the description box, I will upload Audiolabs Omnia link for you all. And then I'm going to go over some features with you all. But when I do go over the features, I'm going to have a close-up look of the amplifier. And then, yes, at the very end of the video, I'm going to have a comparison for you all because I know how much you all love comparisons. And I actually had a lot of people reach out to me and said, hey, TJ, will you compare the overall sound performance of the Omnia against, over here on your all's right-hand side, my Audiolabs 6000A integrated amplifier? And I was kind of shocked how many people asked me that. And I was like, well, of course I can do that. So at the end of the video, I will have that comparison for you all. So basically, overall, the Omnia is Audiolabs' answer of a 3-in-1. Meaning they took 3 of their 6000 series components and put them all inside one integrated amplifier. And the 3 components that they used, first off, yes, they used the Audiolabs 6000A integrated amplifier, and then they used the streamer built inside, which is actually the Audiolab N6000 Play. And then to top it off, that is kind of shocking, if you see here in the front, Audiolab added the CDT 6000, so you do have a CD player that's built inside. But the difference with the Omni is it don't have a slot port on the front of it like the CDT 6000 does. You actually have a tray that comes out. So I thought that was pretty cool overall. But anyways, the amplifier, overall, it is rated at 50 watts at 8 ohms and 75 watts at 4 ohms. But one of the things that I love that Omnia or Audiolab stuck with is it's a Class AB amplifier. And if you all been watching this channel, you all know how much I love Class AB amplification. So some of the specs, the Omnia weighs 20 pounds. When it comes to how wide it is, it's about 17 inches wide. When it comes to the depth, it is about 12 inches deep, and it sets up about 5.5 to 6 inches in total size. Now, I will tell you, when I was using it, the Omnia as a streamer, I only have Spotify. So I did use, the built-in DTS Play-Fi. I actually used my phone, went and got the DTS Play-Fi app. I actually found my Spotify, and I was streaming from my Spotify via Wi-Fi instead of using Bluetooth. And I'll tell you, Wi-Fi sounds much better than Bluetooth in my opinion. But anyways, that's the only experience I had with it as using the streamer. Many of you all know that I love to spin the silver disc, but streamers have came a long ways in overall performance. But now I'm going to go over some features with you all, so it's time to take a close look. Okay, it is time now for the close-up look of the Audiolab Omnia as I talk about this featured, rich, all-in-one HiFi system by Audiolab. Now, first off, just real quick, I was just talking to you all about using the DTS Play-Fi app that I used to play my Spotify. But actually, the Audiolab Omnia is also room tested. I just wanted to make sure I got that out there to you all. And the price point of the Audiolab Omnia for us over here in the United States from Audio Advisory, the Omnia comes in at $2,299 US. But with any kind of audio gear or speakers, I will always recommend that you try your best to audition it first. So now let's jump straight into this. As you can see right here on the front, on the far right hand side, we have a push button power button, but basically this just turns the Audiolab into standby mode and turns it on. The light you see flashing next to it, basically it's looking for a signal, a Wi-Fi signal. I don't have nothing hooked up to it at the moment, but anyways, that's what that light is for. Then next to that, you see we have our push button volume control. Yes, I would have much rather seen a volume knob, but I use the remote control most of the time anyways. Then next to that, we have our play pause for our built-in CD player. Then next to that, we have our stop and eject button. And then next to that, we actually have where we go through our different inputs with the Audiolab Omnia. Now down here on the bottom, we have our 6.3 millimeter jack for headphones. I have a couple different sets of headphones, and the built-in amplifier will drive headphones up to about 600 ohms. So now, let's take a look at this LCD screen in the middle. You all, I absolutely love this screen. And you can use many different displays. Of course, I'm using the VU meters, but you can also go to just the Audiolab logo. You can turn the display completely off, and you can actually just keep it on the home screen, which I'm playing a CD at the moment because I wanted this to pull up for y'all so you could see it. And then actually we have the electronic, what I always called electronic meters, which remind me of back in the 90s with my tape decks. I actually like these electronic meters just as well as I do the VU meters. Now let's go ahead and put it back on its home screen. There's the home screen, and now I'm going to go ahead and eject the CD. But first we'll have to stop the CD. Then after we stop the CD, we'll hit eject, and you'll see the tray comes out really nice and smooth. The CD player works very well. This is a very thin CD tray, but it had to be because basically the engineers engineered the tray to actually fit into a slot-loaded mechanism, and they done a very good job at this. I'm going to go ahead and close it now. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go through the many different inputs with you all. As you see, here's our CD input. Now I'm going to go to USB HDD input. As you can see this little frequency meter, and when you are playing music, it will bounce up and down. It's pretty cool also. Then we'll go to PC USB, and then we have optical 1, optical 2, coax 1, coax 2, auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2, auxiliary 3, phono, which means it has a, you can hook a turntable up to it, has a phono preamp in the back. And then we have network. And then, yes, of course, we have Bluetooth also. The 3 antennas you see in the back, these 2 are Wi-Fi, while this one over here on the far side is Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is aptX and aptX LLC. So now, let's take a look at the back of the all-in-one amplifier. And we have a lot going on the back of the Omnia. Starting on the far left-hand side, we have our power IEC inlet. So, you know, it does have a detachable power cable. Absolutely love that. Then we have our main power switch to turn it off and on. And then we have our 4-way binding post. You can go bare wire, spades, banana plugs. Really nice 5-way binding post. And then over here, you see we have our update that we can plug in update here. Here's our main internet connection. And then here is a 5 volt 1 amp plug-in. You know, if you wanted to hook up your tablet to charge it up or your phone or something like that, you can do that. And then here, these 2 that you see, you have optical, digital output, and you have coaxial output. This actually does an output. That is very cool to see that overall. Then we have our inputs. We have 2 Toslink inputs, digital, and 2 digital coax inputs. And then we have our USB inputs, got this nice gold ring around it, really nice. And then over here we have actually our preamp output. These are our preamp outputs. And then next to that we have our power input. Now the really cool thing about that power amp input is that you can hook the Omnia up to your home theater system. Basically it's a home theater bypass, meaning that you could take your home theater receiver or your home theater processor preamp and send the front channel output into the Omnia, then hook your front speakers up to the Omnia to take that load off of your receiver. So basically you can use it as a dedicated amplifier or a dedicated preamp. Audiolab does that a lot with their integrated amplifiers and all-in-one, and that is really good to see. Then we're going to have auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2, auxiliary 3. Then we'll have our phono preamp for people that want to hook up a turntable. Again, you all, this is basically an all-in-one hi-fi system that really takes the trouble out of the way of equipment matching. A lot of people don't want to deal with that hassle of equipment matching, meaning going out buying a preamp, then buying an amplifier, then finding out what transport you want to buy, then what phono preamp or DAC that you want to buy. The Omnia takes all that fuss away. It's just the all-in-one ready for you. So that is a big pro with the Omnia. So now you all, it is time for the comparison of the sound performance between the Audiolab Omnia versus the Audiolab 6008. And I'm going to do this over in my midfield room where I listen to most of my music. Let's go. It is time for the comparison due by popular demand. That's right, y'all. I'm going to be comparing the overall sound performance of the Audiolab Omnia against my own personal Audiolab 6008. And I will tell you all, it has been a lot of fun comparing them against each other. I have owned the 6008 for about 2.5 years. And about 2 years ago, I actually video reviewed the 6008 on this channel. And if you want to check that out, down in the description box, I will upload that link. I also compared the 6008 on video to my Iotavx stack. Again, I will post that video down in the description box, because today it is just going to be the 6008 versus the Omnia, or the Omnia versus the 6008. Now, I've actually had the Omnia for about 5 weeks now, you all, and for the first month, I listened to it every day without, comparing it to any other audio gear. But for the last week, I've been A/B testing the Omnia against the 6008 due to popular demand. A lot of people asked me to compare them against each other. And I had to do this in 2 different domains, you all. First, I compared them against the digital domain. That's right, y'all, meaning I compared the 6008's built-in DAC against the built-in DAC of the Omnia. And one thing I will tell you all is that the engineers at Audiolab, they have been so true to sticking with a certain type of DAC chip. Audiolab, ever since like 2011, 2012, has been building a circuitry around the same type of DAC chip, and that is from ESS Technologies. So the engineers at Audiolab have a lot of experience building a circuitry around the DAC chips built inside these amplifiers. And then, yes, of course, I compared them in the analog domain against each other. So basically what I did, I took my Audiolab CDT 6000, that's a CD transport, and I actually used my reference Burson Composer DAC. I absolutely love this DAC. Maybe I will review it in the future. And I used the analog outputs from the Burson running to the auxiliary 1 of the Omnia and the auxiliary 1 of the Audiolab 6008. So now let's jump into digital, comparing the built-in DAC of the 6008 to the built-in DAC of the Omnia. Now the 6008, it's DAC built inside has the chip that is the ESS Technologies 9018K2M DAC chip. Now that DAC chip will decode 24-bit 192 kilohertz PCM. Now the DAC chip that is built inside the Omnia, and one thing I will tell you all is the Omnia again comes in at a price point around $2,300 US, and the 6008 comes in around a price point in the US at about $1,200. So yes, the engineers at Audiolab paid very close to attention of building the overall DAC circuitry around their new DAC chip, that this DAC chip is, about a half a step above the DAC chip built in the 6000A, and that's no other than the Omnia has the ESS Technology Saber 32 9038 Q2M DAC chip. Now this DAC chip will decode 32-bit to 768 kilohertz PCM, but it will also decode DSD up to 512. And it will decode MQA, you all. That's right, MQA, for the two of you watching this that listen to MQA. No, I'm not taking nothing away from MQA. I hope that format really takes off. But again, when I was comparing the DACs against each other, yes, the built-in DAC in the Omnia, which it should, it was about a half a step above overall in performance. Now, I don't want to sit here and fluff it up or blow a bunch of smoke up your all's ear hole, so I'm going to take a cue from my 6000A initial review when I was talking about its built-in DAC. Now with the 6000A, when I was comparing the built-in DAC to my budget outboard DACs, from $150 to $200 US, when I had them hook up to the 6000A, the 6000A done a very good job of competing with those outboard DACs. I think at that time I had DACs like the Shit Modi 3, the Shit Modius, the Topping E30, and I also had the Topping D50. And the built-in DAC on the Audiolab 6008 done a great job. And I basically told people that the built-in DAC, being paired up with the 6008, it will compete again with outboard DACs from the $150 to $200 range. So then I started doing the same thing with the Omnia. I started getting, a little bit more expensive DACs I have. Here's the Sonicos LA-QXD1 DAC that I bought. I bought this one from HiFi Go. I love HiFi Go. The built-in DAC chip is also the 9038 Q2M DAC chip. And when I was comparing this outboard DAC to the built-in DAC of the Omnia, being paired to the Omnia, of course, the Omnia's built-in DAC done a very good job of competing with this DAC. So I said, okay, I'm going to take it up a level, or what I perceive to be a level, and I'm going to use one of my favorite budget DACs, the ON X8 Magic DAC, again, that I got from HiFi Go, because I love HiFi Go. Now also, the ON X8 Magic DAC has the 9038 Q2M DAC chip built in also. But when I was comparing it against, the ON being hooked up to the Omnia, again, the Omnia altogether done a very good job of competing with this outboard DAC. So what I'm getting at, you all, is the built-in DAC on the Omnia will compete with outboard DACs in the price range from about $250 US to about $300 US overall, and that is being paired up to the Omnia, and that was really good to hear. So basically what I'm saying is, yes, the built-in DAC on the Omnia is a half a step above, but no worries, because it would be very easy for somebody to upgrade to an outboard DAC with the 6000A. I don't want to take anything away from the 6000A, but a lot of times we get what we pay for. Now, am I sitting here telling you if you own the 6000A or the 6000A Play that you should go out and sell it and buy the Omnia? Hell no, I am not saying that. If you own the 6000A or 6000A Play, you already own a badass integrated amplifier. So now, let's get straight into comparing them in what I call the analog domain. Let's go. Now it is time to compare the amplifiers in what I call the analog domain. Again, I was using my reference DAC and my reference transport to compare them against each other. I did this for over a week's time, you all, and I had no business at all taking that long comparing them against each other. Because after the first day, I could hear the very settled difference in between the two amplifiers. Because yes, both of these amplifiers sound a lot alike, meaning they have the same tonal character overall that I have always called natural and relaxed sounding. meaning that these amplifiers, natural, meaning that, overall, the amplifiers don't sound too warm and they don't sound too cool. But we all know that there's no amplifier that sounds perfectly neutral. So if I had a scale 1 to 10, 10 over here being very warm sounding, and 1 over here being that it's very cool sounding, and then 5 must be neutral. When it comes to both of these amplifiers, yes, I would say they lean more towards a 5.5 to a 6 overall, having just a tiny bit of warmth to them overall. Compared to my other integrated amplifiers with both of these Audiolabs, to me, they are very uncolored sounding overall. Then when I talk about relaxed sounding, I'm telling you all that these amplifiers, there is no boosted bass, there's no boosted treble where you have that V-shape sound curve, and these amplifiers don't present, in that upper mid-range, it doesn't present that forward presentation, meaning these amplifiers are very well balanced. And overall, I will say both of them have a mature sound to them overall that is very well behaved. But when I sit there testing them against each other, for both of their price points and feature loaded with the Omnia, both of them have very good clarity. The instrument separation is outstanding on both of them. And when it comes to the soundstage, both these amplifiers help my speakers to have a very good soundstage overall. So when I'm A/B testing them against each other, I'm like, oh my goodness, these amplifiers sound so much alike that I really had to tune in and tune out and use my critical audiophile listening ears to hear those very little subtle differences. And to me, you all, the only differences I could hear it all was, for one, with the Audiolab Omnia, it does, have just a little bit, y'all, this is very subtle, a little bit more meat on the bone. And overall, I would say the Omnia is just a dash, just a hair bit warmer overall. On that scale again, I would have the Audiolab Omnia at about a 6, where I would have the Audiolab 6008 at about a 5.5. But anyways, the difference I seen with the 6000A is that the 6000A does have a little bit more of a darker background overall, and this really helps for the micro details to be more apparent overall. So I was hearing a little bit, deeper into the music with the 6000A, but again, you all, it is very settled. When I compared them against each other in that analog domain, they're both on the same playing field. They're right there with each other in that regard. And that's the only differences that I could hear with these amplifiers. Now, I would say if you're pairing up speakers to the Omnia or the 6000A, I would, pair up speakers, let's just tell it like it is, speakers that can sound a little bright, a little edgy, a little glassy, speakers that can sound a little bit metallic sounding. And yes, I'm talking about speakers like Clips, KEF, Monitor Audio, JBL, triangles with a horn-loaded design, and even focal speakers pair up good with these amplifiers. I wouldn't recommend speakers that, tend to be laid back and smooth sounding. And most speakers that are like that, normally there's a small dip in those speakers between 2 to 5 kilohertz. There'll be a little bit of a deep dip in the overall frequency response of that speaker, because the engineer does want that speaker to have that smooth and more laid back sound overall. And it's normally at the bottom of the treble overall. And again, I would not pair these amplifiers up to those type of speakers. Now, one of the caveats with these amplifiers is, may not be a caveat to a lot of people out there, but to some people they will be. Now, both of these are Class AB, 50 watts at 8 ohms, 75 watts at 4 ohms, but neither one of these amplifiers are what I would call a powerhouse amplifier, meaning these aren't high current amplifiers. So if you want to listen to music at very loud listening levels, no, I would not recommend either one of these amplifiers. Just like in my initial review of the 6000A, I even told people that I would recommend speakers that are like 88 dB and above to use these amplifiers to drive them. because once you get down to 87, 86, 85 dB, once you get to those louder listening levels, yes, these Audiolab amplifiers run out of a little bit of juice. But one of my favorite speakers I hooked up with these Audiolab amplifiers is no other than one of my favorite budget speakers, the KEF Q350. I think it's rated at like 86, 87 dB, but it drops down to 3.7 ohms. Now this speaker sounds outstanding with these amplifiers up to those medial listen levels. But if you want to listen at those very loud listening levels, yes, these amplifiers do run a little bit out of juice. Now, like I always said, it doesn't matter how many watts an amplifier has that matters, but it is the quality of them watts that matters. And both the Omnia and the 6000A is what I would call quality watts over. The thing is, y'all, I feel like it is my job to keep y'all's expectations in check before you make any kind of buying decision. Now, when it comes to speakers, like I said before with the 6000A review, speakers that are like 88 dB efficient and above, yes, the Audiolab amplifiers will drive them easily at them loud volumes. To give you an example, here is one of my favorite entry-level speakers, the Triangle Esprit Easy Common. It is rated at 90 dB efficiency, and yes, both of these Audiolab amplifiers will drive this speaker to very loud volumes. And they also pair up very good. But again, going back to the comparison, you all, in that analog domain, yes, both the 6000A and the Omnia are on that same playing field. Again, the Omnia to me sounds like it has just a little bit more meat on the bone. It's just a little bit warmer, as whereas the 6000A has just a little bit more of a darker background, making those micro details just a little bit more apparent overall. And again, you all, these are very subtle differences. I mean, I had to tune in, tune out, and put my critical audiophile listening ears on to hear the difference between them. But one of the biggest pros, you all, in my humble opinion, with the Omnia is it's going to take, the hassle and the fuss of equipment matching completely out of the equation. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people, when they go out to build a system, they will go out and they'll buy the preamp, then the amplifier, and then they'll go out and they have to buy a transport, whether it's digital or analog, and then they got to buy either, an outboard DAC or they got to buy an outboard phono preamp. And they want equipment match. They want everything to match up good. Well, with the Audiolab Omnia, it takes that completely out of the equation. And that is really cool. Now, some people will tell you that separates overall do sound better. I will agree with that, y'all. But it's also going to cost you a lot more money. But one thing you don't hear people talking about is when you have an all-in-one integrated amplifier, it actually has the shortest signal path also. Meaning you're not going to have all kinds of RCA interconnects plugging up, digital cables plugging up, 3 or 4 different power cables hooking up. All you do with the Omnia is plug up a set of speakers and plug in the power cable, and that is it. And having the home theater bypass, in my opinion, that is huge for people out there that have a home theater system, maybe in their living room, and they want to have a HiFi system also. The Audiolab Omnia is going to be wonderful for that. And so that pretty much wraps it up for me, you all. Sorry I didn't have a pop the hood video for you all. I didn't feel comfortable popping the hood on a $2,300 amplifier that doesn't belong to me. So down in the description box, I will upload a link of another YouTuber who has a video where he bought the Omnia and he went inside and showed all the internals. So down in the description box, I will upload it for you all because the engineers at Audiolab done an outstanding job with the Audiolab Omnia. Until next time, this is TJ, the Stereo-Bargainphile. Peace.